How's it going, guys? And welcome to your review of Spider-Man No Way Home. And I know a lot of people have been asking about this one. Simple fact of the matter is, I can't review a movie if I haven't seen it. So now I've seen it. That's the thing. A lot of people think as soon as the movie comes out, I'm like right there for like the midnight screening or whatever. I rarely do that. I have not done that in ages. And probably won't ever be doing that again, quite frankly. It's just not the most enjoyable time to be seeing a movie for me. But yeah, so I finally got to see it a week later. And was this movie worth seeing? Was this movie everything was cracked up to be? I haven't seen a single person saying that they didn't enjoy this movie. And then when I saw the movie, I realized there's a simple fact of the matter for that. The movie is spectacular. It's a phenomenal Spider-Man movie. It's a phenomenal superhero movie. It's just a phenomenal movie altogether. And see, this is why I hated on a lot of other Marvel content, and people didn't seem to understand why. See, this is why. See, this is the problem with a lot of fandoms. We keep saying everything is great, everything is spectacular, everything is wonderful, fine, no flaws. That when we finally get a movie that truly does have those qualities, you have a bunch of shit that you just like put over as being amazing, and we have like no quality standards at all. So that's why I always had to sit here in this chair. Well, it's probably a different. It was a different chair a few chairs ago, many years ago here on this channel. When I started really getting fed up with the MCU, and when it really started with Age of Ultron and furthered my disgust with films like Civil War that just were not delivering on the goods. They were subpar films with subpar stories, and some people would argue, oh, some of that stuff happened in the comics. Well, that stuff wasn't that great. And it really wasn't even good at times. But now we've got Spider Man No Way Home. And a little bit of history, a little bit of backstory before we get into this, because, sorry if you've heard this one before, some comedians would say. But, we have to give a little backstory for those who are not subscribers or longtime viewers to this channel. So with that in mind, what did I think of the previous films? Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought it was a good movie with a good performance from Michael Keaton. I wasn't too keen on Tom Holland at the time. I don't think he was a terrible choice, but he looked far too young in that movie. We go over to Far From Home. Jake Gyllenhaal, another good villain. Good casting for the villains, by the way. Um, it was another good movie. On the second viewing, though, I remember I had told people that I had noticed that this film definitely had a very, very dragged out first act. Admittedly, funny, humorous, but not warranting so much time given to it. And I also wasn't too crazy about like half the movie Spider-Man not being in his costume and being Spider Monkey and all this stuff. A lot of it did not really fly with me like 100%. But the action with Mysterio, the illusions, all that stuff was great. And the end, the cliffhanger, we almost didn't get an answer to that cliffhanger thanks to the legal battles with Sony and Disney and all the nonsense that went on with that. So, here we are 3 years later or so, and we have well, it's actually like 2 years, so it wasn't terrible, right? Not too much of a wait, 2.5 years roughly, if I'm stretching it, and we have what's a pretty damn good movie that felt very fleshed out, felt complex, but also simplified as well. Where Endgame kind of just was all over the place, it just did not click with me 100%. Like I said, it was a good movie, but also dragged out and way too long, and they could have sped things along, but that, again, another movie, no flaws there, right? That's how the the MCU fan base rolls a lot of the time. But I was here saying that no, it was a good movie, and if you invested your time in all the other Marvel movies, as did I said you'd probably want to go see it. It definitely was a movie that you're going to have to see to get closure. But here we did something similar in a different way, you know, where we did something complex, but it felt like it was really working quite well. So as we go forward here in this, if you didn't see it, I'm going to probably put in the title. There are going to be spoilers in this. So if you've not seen the movie, do not come crying because this time I'm actually putting it in the title. Or I'm going to put it somewhere you'll be able to see it for this video before you clicked on it. And I don't understand like why people even want to watch reviews, even if they're spoiler free. I don't even get really the point of a spoiler free review a lot of the time because you have to like work around what you're talking about. No, like it's like go see the movie, decide for yourself. You shouldn't even be listening to the critics. The critics are all liars. The critics are all dumbasses. We've said it time and time again on this channel. They cannot be trusted. If it was for the critics, I would have not watched the first Venom film, and I would have been so sorry for that. But then again, I've never really listened to the critics for many many years now. So yes, so we pick up right where Far From Home left off. The media is like all over Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson, and like I said, terrific to have J.K. Simmons back in this role, who is just iconic. I mean, absolutely, it's got to be one of the greatest casting choices. I mean, you look at J.K. Simmons, when he did have hair, at least, he looked like the comic book character. He looked like the cartoon character for the animated series. I mean, Ed Asner, a phenomenal J. Jonah Jameson as far as talking animated shows, but we gotta like talk about live action. J.K. Simmons, I mean, this was just one of the best choices. Raimi bringing this guy in back in the day, tremendous and tremendous to have him back. So this is causing a lot of unrest in Peter Parker's life, to say the least. And finally, Tom Holland has grown into the role. He has matured a little bit. Maybe a little too young looking still, but overall, it looks better than it did. In Homecoming, in my opinion, he looked way too young. But here, he's starting to mature, and that could clearly be seen. So I have to say that. So yeah, it's causing a lot of unrest. He's getting rejected from schools. It's affecting MJ and his friend Ned. Everyone's getting rejected. So Spider-Man cooks up an idea. Peter cooks up an idea. It's like he goes to visit Doctor Strange, and he wants Doctor Strange to like undo the fact that his identity has been given out to the world, and he wants Strange to undo all of this. And that's exactly what Strange does. But as you saw in the trailer, he has perverted the spell. He's asking Strange. They didn't show this in the trailer, but he asked multiple times for Doctor Strange to change the spell. He wants MJ to still remember him. He wants Ned to still remember him. Then he wants Aunt May to still remember him. And it's just destroying the spell. It's perverting the spell. The spell goes wrong, and you can't really tell that it's gone wrong at first, but of course you know that it has. We see an appearance also from Charlie Cox in this, which was really surprising. I didn't expect to see that. I did a wonderful job of avoiding spoilers. Quite frankly, I'm really surprised that a lot of people like didn't post spoilers, or maybe it's because I don't really follow a lot of the Spider-Man fan pages like on Instagram and Facebook, so that's probably why. I don't really follow a lot of those types of pages, and because they don't really offer like any content I'm interested in seeing, and I'm sure I would have gotten spoiled to fuck over it, and that's why I'm happy I managed to avoid all that. So yeah, Charlie Cox from Daredevil from the Netflix series makes his appearance here. It's really quick and short, but it definitely did get a gasp from, even the very small theater I was at. People did not expect to see him, and neither did I. So the spell that Doctor Strange has cast has actually taken effect, and the multiverse has now opened up. And the first villain we see is Alfred Molina as Doctor Octopus. And this part, that they have on the highway or the freeway or whatever you want to call it is just, well, it's New York, so it's a highway. Sorry to all Californians, but we don't have those in New York freeways. But yeah, this battle right here, this was a great fight. Peter uses his updated Stark gear to control the arms on Doc Ock, and I like really what they've done with this. He manages to subdue Doc Ock, and Doctor Strange from this point has conducted a plan. Every time he sees someone from the multiverse, one of these villains, he's gonna have to use a device to transport them back to Strange's hideout, and they're going to have to return everyone to their respective places within the multiverse. Then we see that the Goblin had shown up on the bridge previously, but quickly flies away. We have Electro, Lizard, and Sandman all showing up, and they all end up getting trapped, and Goblin is on the loose, and Peter has to find him, to get everybody sent back. But we see that Norman Osborn has changed back into his Osborn alter ego, and while he is there, in that alter ego, he doesn't know where he is. He's in a whole different timeline, so he ends up at the food pantry, homeless shelter, wherever it's supposed to be, where Aunt May is working, and May convinces Peter to not send these people back because they need help. And we kind of see the conflict here. Now Peter realizes that these people, they're going to be sent back, and they're sent back to die. And we see that all the villains kind of realized that before they got pulled into this multiverse, they were all in positions where they were about to die. And this was very interesting, this plot, because, up until seeing this movie, I never really noticed that all of the villains kick the bucket at the end. No one survives in these Spider-Man films. And it's always been like that, kind of, when you really think about it. Even in Batman films, they all end up dying, even though both of them have a no kill code. So it's always been a way of explaining why the villain is not there. I never understood though why we couldn't lock them in Ravencroft, which happens most of the time in the comics. You don't open up a comic book and the villain just instantly dies. They usually keep them alive so they could come back. But there's always something about the finality, the climactic nature of a death, as opposed to just locking someone in a prison. I mean, let's take an example here for a moment. Take the first Batman film, 1989, Tim Burton, a spectacular masterpiece in my opinion. Joker dies in the end. Dies in probably one of the most ways that he's not coming back. He's falling from the top of a fucking building, dropping how many stories onto the concrete below to his death. But then we have Batman Forever, where the Riddler survives. Obviously, a much less good movie, but it's a funny, humorous part at the end. With Jim Carrey, but there's something so much more synonymous with a climax than a death. Because, man, you're looking at Jack Nicholson dying with a smile on his face, laying in the middle of the road. I don't think you could have gotten a better finish than that to a movie. And you kind of see that you don't get the same thing with Batman Forever. So that's kind of my little example there. Obviously, can't use one really with Spider-Man because everyone basically ends up dying in those films. And that's interesting that they decided to go that route. We're going to help these villains You know, because a lot of these villains, they actually start off as somewhat good people. You know, Doc Connors, you know, Electro started off as a good guy. Sandman was doing what he was doing only for his daughter. I noticed they didn't really bring that up, like the motives, but I guess they didn't want to bog things too much down in dialogue. But yeah, if you've seen all these films previously, this is a lot more satisfying. A lot of other people, like if you haven't seen these past films, it's still watchable because you know that they're villains and they've done bad things in the past. But I really like, this is definitely a more satisfying film, I would think, for someone such as myself, like at my age, than like for someone maybe like in their early 20s, But I guess it's kind of assumed that if you're that big of a fan of Spider-Man, you probably would have eventually saw the Sam Raimi films and everything. And, I see the fan base for the Tom Holland films mostly detested these films. So I really haven't seen people's reactions like from that camp. But I don't know if they're unhappy, and quite frankly, I don't really give a shit. But I mean, I guess it would be interesting to know like what did they think about these villains coming back and these timelines being such a crucial part of the plot when people didn't like these films. I've seen people say some really truly like awful things about the Sam Raimi films, making like they're some of the worst superhero movies of all time, and obviously that shows that most people have probably either not seen them or they haven't seen a lot of the other superhero movies. And because then you wouldn't really know how low quality it could get, and trust me, it could get pretty low. So with that in mind, yeah, also how about Nostalgia Critic? If anyone has seen one of his videos when he compared the Sam Raimi films with the Andrew Garfield films, and he had the Andrew Garfield films actually went out. Did anyone ever see that titanically bad video that he did from a few years back? I've seen now he's like reviewed them, but that's kind of why I've taken like an extended break from watching Nostalgia Critics content, because he's just had one too many bad takes. And and I get it, like you can't always expect a YouTuber to like share your viewpoints, but I'm sorry, like that is like such a bad take because those films are just not good. I'm so surprised. Now, obviously, there's redeeming factors to them, but like this guy made probably one of the worst cases ever for the Amazing series being better than the Raimi films. It's so bad that like I did watch his content after that, but that was always like a black blotch on his reputation for me as like a content creator. But anyway, let's get back into the plot. Can't help myself for talking about little things over the years with these films that like have annoyed me with people's like opinions. But anyway, we've got Peter and the request the help of MJ and Ned, and I like that they felt more crucial to the plot here. They have sort of in a way helped out, but they feel like more of a help this time around. Uh, anyway, Doctor Strange is not happy with this plan that Peter has to help these guys instead of sending them back right away. And we get like one of the best visuals of him fighting Doctor Strange. I mean, this is just like the city is moving around, things are breaking apart. It's really like a dazzling sequence, to be quite honest. And maybe one of the best like fights, chases, whatever you want to consider. It's really like a good visual like scene. Really like what probably like up there. Well, actually, maybe better than him and Mysterio from the previous film. I think that they did a really good job with that. Uh, anyway, as he helps out Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is the only one who ends up truly getting helped in the end, as he stops the tentacles from going into his brain. He kind of puts something right near like the brain stem of Doc Ock and sutures it onto the back of his neck, and he ends up becoming a good guy and an ally. They almost help out Electro, but Peter's spider sense goes off, and Norman Osborn is now the Green Goblin again. And let's talk about this here for a moment. The phenomenal performance from Willem Dafoe stealing the show. In my opinion, the greatest villain in superhero movie history. I've said it time and time again. This is why I complain so much about, Civil War. You didn't have a really good supervillain. The only villain that they showed in there besides Hydra agents was fucking Crossbones in there for like 2 minutes, and people were, this is fine. The MCU fanboys are kind of like that dog sitting in that fiery apartment. They just they have no qualms at all about like anything. Nothing is bad to them. If another studio makes a more of them, well, Sony, oh yeah, then we could criticize it. But yeah, if it came out of the drain pipe of Disney directly, then oh yeah, praise the heavens, it's amazing, right? Like I'll never understand that. Like you guys don't see any flaws in those films. And here's an example right here. This was people bashed this performance. I remember they called it campy for Willem Dafoe. Like campy, like really, like like a supervillain is meant to ham it up. And to the same morons who always said, read the comics. Yeah, have you read a comic in your life of like the Green Goblin? And you're going to tell me that he wasn't hamming it up? And that's a fucking drawing with dialogue added in. Like, do you people not even understand how stupid some of the arguments are over the years what you've made? But whatever, because I got my performance that I'm looking for. I got my super villain in the Green Goblin. This changes Electro's mind, and Sandman, and everybody just decides to just rebel against Peter and Aunt May. And here's the turning point in the film, because now the villains have all completely broken loose. And thanks to Ned playing around with one of Doctor Strange's portal opening gadgets, they end up finding Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. And let me tell you something, the chemistry between all three of them, Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire, is just straight up surprisingly phenomenal. Like here are like three actors from like three completely different generations, all different ages, and they all just clicked. And the humor here, what we saw, like a little bit different than the Raimi films, but it had the charm to it. It definitely had a level of charm. Not that like the past Spider-Man films with Tom Holland did not have any charm at all, but like I feel like this is the movie where they finally found like the Raimi charm. Not completely, not 100%, but it was there. And that is also why I'm also now looking forward to seeing Doctor Strange 2 with Raimi in the director's chair. I am hyped for that because now we have the Spider-Man crossover there, and it's sort of kind of like getting what I wanted all along, but with a different protagonist like in the main role. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they go with that. Obviously, what happens in the final act may affect what we see in Doctor Strange too. So that remains to be seen. So we get an epic fight scene near the Statue of Liberty. This is another dazzling visual here. Everyone is involved on this fight. I like that we did at least get an improved look for Electro. They did not have him have that whole blue look through the whole thing. The Lizard, I really wish they could have just, increased the size of his snout, but whatever. I guess they still wanted to give it that amazing Spider-Man look to it. And it looks like they're curing everybody. They've managed to cure everyone. And then Norman Osborn shows up. And this is hot off the heels, actually, of they get into a fight in like the scene right before this. and Aunt May dies. And this is like, it's a pretty heartfelt moment to say the least. Definitely adds gravity. I didn't really expect them to do that. But they went that route, and they've now taken out a character, a pivotal character in Peter's life. So we kind of get that because we didn't get to have an Uncle Ben scene. We didn't have Peter experiencing loss in the previous two films. So this kind of gives it that that added weight because you have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker that have experienced the loss of Uncle Ben. This time around, that wasn't the case, and now we sort of get an Uncle Ben sort of death in the form of Aunt May. So I guess that was pretty good. So now we have Peter enraged, and he wants to kill the Goblin. He wants to kill Norman Osborn. I like what they did with Norman, who had previously broken his mask, his helmet earlier on before he goes into the homeless shelter. And I like this little outfit he came, the hood and everything. This kind of sort of reminded me of kind of like what Harry did in Spider-Man 3, kind of having this makeshift sort of costume, but not having a goblin look to it. But this was pretty cool. I did like how he had the glasses, the goggles, whatever they were. He ends up stabbing Toby, and it looks like things are about to just go wrong, and maybe that Tom Holland may snap and kill the Goblin, but he ends up curing him, and we've got Norman back. Now everyone gets sent back to where they belong. But as this has all been going on, the multiverse has been splitting up, and Doctor Strange is trying to get everything back to where it needs to be. He's trying to seal things up. And they're all coming for Peter Parker. So what does Peter, Tom Holland, decide to do? He decides to kind of go with the original plan, but a little bit different. He wants everyone like in the whole world to forget that he was Peter Parker. And at this part, I wasn't too crazy about this idea. Like, I've never been a fan of like erasing things or it was all a dream and everything. And I kind of surmise they're going to go in a different direction than when we kind of think they're going to go in. But this is sure enough what Strange ends up doing. He erases the memory of Peter Parker being Spider-Man. And, in a way, this ending, I'm kind of a little mixed on it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? But maybe this will actually lead to the real Mary Jane. Maybe Peter will now meet Mary Jane and not Michelle Jones. And we see a scene at the end where we have him going to the same diner that MJ was working at, and they kind of have a moment there when we think that maybe there might be some sort of a reconnection, but sure enough, there's not. And it looks like maybe Peter might leave them alone. Maybe feels like he doesn't want to put them in danger. And then if you stayed for the end credits, you will know that it appears that probably in either the next Venom film or the next Spider-Man film, we will be getting some Venom Spider-Man action, which I'm definitely looking forward to. And yeah, overall, this really was a phenomenal film. And someone brought something very interesting to my attention when I was doing my reaction to the last trailer that came out. They says, okay, you're only excited about it, Brad, because see, this is the funny thing. I get people saying that I'm bashing everything, and then I get people also saying that I'm not bashing the movies enough. So this is why, like, I don't know how people do this, like on YouTube where they tell their fan base what they want to hear. Quite frankly, if you feel like what I'm saying is like offensive about like um these movies, like my opinion, like sorry, it's like you could shop around on YouTube and you're sure to find someone that will share that same opinion as you. But it wasn't nostalgia because the thing is, yeah, well, you could do nostalgia like, I still never saw Ghostbusters Afterlife. I will see it when it comes to streaming. But like, see, that movie didn't get me excited. This did. I had a good feeling, and sure enough, that good feeling followed through. Because that's what it is. Because it seemed like this was going to be something worth my time. See, I don't really have interest in like nostalgia trips if it's just going to be nostalgia with no substance. I've said this time and time again. I'm a big fan of less is more. The less you give of something, sometimes it's a good thing, like when they make like no sequel to something. If something's elusive, it makes it feel original. It leaves you wanting more. See, but you never get more. And maybe that might have been a good thing for like the Raimi films. The fact that we never got that fourth film. It's elusive, and we could always imagine what it's like. And I mean, that's kind of fun, sad, and depressing at the same time because it would have been kind of like how I always was. You're always going to have that measuring stick in your mind, just like every single time a new Superman or a new Batman film comes out. Nothing will really have the same style or feel of Batman 1989. Nothing will ever have that same feel as the Christopher Reeve Superman, that first film or the second film. It will, Man of Steel will never be that. You'll never have that same feeling that you did when you see those films. But like this, what I really enjoyed is the fact that when has this ever happened? We never got this with Batman, never got this with Superman, where all the different actors come together and it works so well. And it feels like they have a purpose, that they're not just doing it for just the, hey, nostalgia. We're not, we never get that feeling once, at least I didn't. I didn't feel like they're being shoehorned in here just to tug at your heartstrings. It tugs at your heartstrings, but in all the right ways. And that is why I was so satisfied with this film. A definite recommendation from me, wholeheartedly, without a doubt. Like I said, I have not seen a single solitary person saying anything negative about this film, which I find to be a little bit alarming at the same time. Like, there's got to be someone out there where this movie just didn't do it for them. At times that would be me. But in this case, thankfully, it's not. Especially when it comes to superhero films, I always find myself being the odd man out. Like that came with Batman versus Superman. Me admitting that I like that film seemed to really affect people's view on me in terms of like credibility. Oh, well, he likes that film, so all the movies that he likes must really be shit. Well, if you believe that, then more power to you. But I was the guy that didn't enjoy Civil War, didn't enjoy a lot of the other Marvel movies, to be quite honest, like Age of Ultron. And I'm a James Spader fan. I'm a massive Boston Legal fan, and I did not like him as the villain. I thought that was really not the best vocal performance in my opinion when he voiced Ultron. But yeah, be that as it may, guys, hope you all enjoyed the review here. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm sure you're really going to want to voice your opinion on this one, and I'll be interested to read your comments. So let's have a discussion down there. And guys, if you haven't subscribed already, we're about to hit 2022. I'd love to have your subscription. We'll definitely try to make it worth your while. And click the bells to get all notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time. Fight and fight, fight and fight,